This isn't your average fantasy football game. This is Sorare. Sorare at the moment is my favourite and, in my opinion, the best fantasy football game on the market. It's not just about fantasy football though, it's all about card collecting, and it's also about strategy, both short term and long term. You can play leagues from all across Europe, all across the world. What's not to like about that? If you want to learn more about Sorare, keep watching this video. So what actually is Sorare? We did dive into this a little bit in the last video, but we're going to get into it a little bit deeper. So it's a digital card collecting game. So you're collecting digital cards, okay, just like these ones you can see here. Okay, now these cards are they're NFTs, so they're non-fungible tokens, so nobody else can have that same card that you've got. Okay, so it's all about collecting those cards, and then you can use those cards in fantasy lineups. Now you can collect cards from across Europe, across the world. I mean, just look at some of these cards that I've collected over the last couple of years I've been playing the game. It's really, really cool to be able to collect all these different cards. Now, what's really cool about the game is that you can play these cards in lineups together, or you can play them in particular lineups such as Premier League, MLS, for example. Okay, so we're going to dive into that a little bit more in a minute, but the basic essential of the game is you're collecting cards. And you can also collect all the cards from one team, for example. So I've got quite a big Arsenal collection from last season, for example. So you can collect loads of cards from the same club. You might want to collect lots of the same player, for example. So you might want to collect a particular player over a certain amount of years, and then you can use those players in your lineups. Okay, but also it's pretty cool to collect them as well, because these things are collectible as well, which is another cool element of the game. So yeah, so that's the basic element of how the game works. And then we're going to get into a little bit more how you can play those cards, how those cards have utility. So in terms of the marketplace, the actual cards that you're buying, there's different scarcities. So you've got common's the free to play game. I'm not going to talk too much about that at the moment, but then you've got, in terms of the cards you can actually pay for, you've got limited, you've got rare, you've got super rare, and then you've got unique. Now, so that goes in that order. So limited is the base level. Okay, so for example, I've got most of my gallery is limited. So I've got a number of limited cards, and for example, let's use Declan Rice as an example. Okay, you'll hear me talk about Declan Rice a lot. I love Declan Rice, but so Declan Rice is this. I'm going to just throw some random numbers out there, but Declan Rice's price at limited might be £100. So he might be £100 at limited. In rare, his price could be, I don't know, £500 at rare. And then you move up to super rare, he might be £5,000 at super rare, and then his price at unique might be, I don't know, £15,000, £25,000, whatever. Okay, I'm just throwing random numbers out there now. That's just to give you an idea of the price of the cards go up as you go up through the scarcities. Now, so do the prizes. Now, as you obviously limited, the prizes are smaller, and you got to rare, super rare, unique. The prizes get bigger because obviously the cards are more expensive. The cards are much more valuable because they're much more scarce. In limited, there's 1,000 cards. Well, they aim to put out 1,000 cards of each player per year. Rare is only 100 per year. Super rare is only 10 players per year, and then unique is just one player, one card. So let's think of Virgil van Dijk. There'll only be one Virgil van Dijk Liverpool card put out each season in unique. So that kind of tells you what the competition's like in unique. That's crazy, and the money that those cards are going for is on a whole other level. But yeah, so like I said, majority of my gallery is limited. I have got a few rare cards that I'm currently playing in MLS. Not with much success at the minute, but yeah, most people's entry point is limited, depending on your budget. But yeah, that's kind of how the scarcities work in Sorare. So how does the gameplay actually work? So in terms of Sorare, the gameplay is a little bit different. I say a little bit, it's quite a lot different to your standard fantasy football games. Now, I touched on it in the last video. You play a 5-man lineup. At the moment, there's only five-man lineups. They are talking about potentially upping it to maybe 8-man lineups or 11 aside. I quite like the 5-a-side actually. It's a lot less to think about, and especially when you're playing lots of lineups. But yeah, you pick a goalkeeper, a defender, a midfielder, a forward, and then an extra. An extra can be just any other outfield player. Can't be 2 goalkeepers. Now, what you can then do is you can then play those in different competitions, like I touched on just now. I'm going to move on to that more in a little bit. But in terms of the way the game works, the scoring is very, very different. Okay, now here's a little look at the scoring and how the scoring works. Now, there's so many different things, as you'll see from this list of different things you can be scored for. Now in normal fantasy football, you're getting points for goals, assists, clean sheets. That's about it. Some games you might get a little bit more, like excuse me, like passing points and things like that. Excuse me. But in Sorare, you're winning points for interceptions, you're winning points for key passes, you're winning points for creating a big chance. You're then losing points if you miss a big chance, for example. That's quite a big one that frustrates people. So that comes under your AA scoring, but then you also have what's called decisive scoring, and decisive scoring can be anything from scoring a goal to getting an assist, goalkeepers keeping clean sheets, clearances off the line, last man tackles, things like that. We'll talk more in maybe another video about the actual how scoring actually works and how decisive scoring works and how AA scoring works, but I think the main gist of it is the scoring is so much more rounded. There's so much, the highest a player can score in the game is 100 points, and that's based on so many different things, as you can see from this massive list of different things that you can be scored for. And that's what I enjoy about Sorare. It's more tailored around the real game, because these players you're picking up real players, should I say, sorry. You're picking up their cards and you're using them, and you're getting your scores based on their real football. So the fact that the game is tailored, the scoring is tailored to the actual real life football is so much better than just goals and assists. Football isn't just about goals and assists. There's so much more to the game. So that's something that I'm going to be definitely looking into more, especially in my role as the fake football coach. So yeah, so the scoring system is great, and that's how you score your points in Sorare. So how do you actually play the game? We've talked about the scoring, but how do you actually play the game? What competitions can you play? How do you play? So there's many competitions in the game, in terms of you can play the Premier League, for example. You can play La Liga, you can play Bundesliga, you can play Champion, Challenger, Contender. Now those three competitions are a group of leagues. So I touched on earlier, didn't I, about how you can play players from different leagues in the same competitions. You've also got the All-Star competitions. So All-Star is literally worldwide. So you could play a player from the J League, you could play a player from the Premier League, you could play a player from the Liga, you could play a player from the Championship, and you could play a player from the Belgian League, for example. Which is pretty cool. You've also got under 23. Under 23 is the same as All Star, so that under 23 lineup, as long as your players are under 23, you can play players from absolutely anywhere. So there's all these different competitions that you can play. For example, at the moment, I'm probably playing about 14 lineups a week, roughly. Mainly, my lineups are mainly Premier League. I think I've got a Contender lineup that I put in. I've got a La Liga lineup. I play a little bit of Champion, and I often play a little bit of under 23, and I often put in a couple of All Star lineups with some players that I've just got that I can't really fit into specialist teams. And then just to break it down a little bit more, I think I touched on this in the last video a little bit. You have in season and you have classic. Now in season is the current season cards. So your cards that are that season. So for example, here's some of my in season cards that I've got from this season. These can only be played in season lineups. Now in season rewards are cash. So essentially that gives you then the opportunity to win cash rewards and then build your lineup, so then make them even stronger, to then potentially win even more cash. Now classic is more about then going into the in-season game. So classic, again, here's some of my classic cards that I'm playing in lineups at the moment. Now your classic cards, they are there to mainly win card rewards. So you'll win in-season card rewards, which then obviously allows you to then move into the in-season game. There are some cash rewards in Classic as well, but the majority of the rewards, 99% of the rewards in Classic are card rewards, and those card rewards go up in tier order. The higher you finish, obviously, the better quality of card that you will win. So. And then, for example, you've got the All-Star competitions and the Under 23 competitions. They are classic as well, so you can play classic or in season. Okay, so yes, that's kind of the gist of it, how it works. In season, you can play one classic card. So in your 5-man lineups, you can play one classic card in those lineups. So quite often I will drop a classic card in there if I've got a particularly good card. Like for example, I've got Josko Guardiola. I've also got Alexander Isak. I think Isak's 2 years old. I think Guardiola is last season's card. So I often put them into my in-season lineups because they're both very, very strong scorers in Sorare. So they're good to have in my sort of priority teams. So yeah, so that's kind of the gist of how you play the game. Again, that could be another video that I can do a lot deeper dive into in terms of how you actually play, how you can play to the most optimum way to maybe the gallery that you want to build. So how do you actually get started then in Sorare? Now, my journey was, I definitely made some mistakes along the way. For me, the best way for me to get into it is pick a league or even a club that you know a lot about. So when I first came into the game, I just came into the game and I just started buying some random players. Don't get me wrong, there were players that I knew, they were Premier League players, but I bought some cards that, I mean, one or two that are still in my gallery now that are useful to a degree, but I definitely wasted a little bit of money at the start. But as I've gone through, I mean, if you go and look at my gallery on Sorare, you'll see that I had a big Arsenal collection last year. I've picked up a lot of Arsenal cards this year. Arsenal's my club. I know, I like to think I know a lot about Arsenal. I know I can sort of predict the lineups most weeks, what I do my best to anyway, and I kind of know those players that I think are going to score better in the Sorare scoring system. So yeah, so pick a club you know or a league you know, and go that direction, because if you come into the game and think, yeah, I'm going to buy loads of Argentinian league players and I'm going to buy loads of MLS players and I'm going to buy blah blah blah, but you don't really know who they are or what you're doing, obviously it is going to make that game a little bit harder. As you get into the game, you get a little bit deeper. Obviously, scouting you can become a little bit of a better scout of a player on Sorare, and that will make buying those more unknown players a little bit easier. But to begin with, I think stick with what you know, because you'll have a lot more success in the beginning. You'll finish higher up the leaderboards, and you'll be getting much more rewards, which is obviously why we play the game. We play the game to try and win and finish as high up the leaderboards as we possibly can. So yeah, so that would be my advice. Go with what you know, then branch out to maybe something a little bit different. So that's Sorare in a nutshell, guys. Okay, so it is a complex game, but once you get your head around it, it's really not that crazy, and it's such a great game if you love your football. And you love diving into football that little bit deeper, rather than just sitting and watching the game. You like to actually analyse how good a player is, or how good you think a player could be. Sorare is the game for you. Okay, so if you're looking for something a little bit deeper than your standard fantasy football game, this is the game for you. Guys, drop me a comment with your favourite players, whether that be already on Sorare or your favourite players in football, and I'll come back. I'll let you know whether that is a good player on Sorare, because there are lots of players out there in world football that are great players, but maybe not great on Sorare. Okay, so drop me your players in the comments. If they're already a player you love on Sorare, if you're already playing the game, or if you don't play the game and you're thinking about it, drop your players in the comments, and I'll let you know whether they are already a decent player on Sorare. Please like, guys, please subscribe. It really does me a massive favour. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Fake Football Coach, over and out.